Okay, so here I'm joined by Andrew Esson, who is one of the Scaleup partners for the Scaleup Northeast program being run by RTC North. So, hi Andrew, thank you for joining me today. You've been one of my mentors and advisors through the Scaleup Northeast program. So do you just want to tell me a little bit more about how that program works and the work that you've been doing as part of that?
Sure, and hello, Paul. So, Scaleup Northeast is a Northeast LAP funded project. It is designed to help businesses who have the ambition and the desire to scale to work towards their growth objectives. So, the way the program works, the core of the program is a team of Scaleup partners, of which I'm one of 6. We all joined the program new to business support, so we've all come from the white heat of industry and entrepreneurialism. We've all, I guess, in varying measures, we've won awards, we've got the battle scars, we've been through a sort of rich tapestry of experience, and now we're now all joined by a passion and a motivation to share our experience and help other businesses scale and grow, and hopefully help some of them to avoid some of the pitfalls that we fell into along the way.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. So one of the things that really appealed to me about working with you was got a very different background to me, but at the same time, I think we get on really well. We've built up a really nice rapport very quickly. But your background's mostly engineering, and mine's more kind of digital. But you have been involved in a lot of digital transformation projects. So how have you found it working with someone like me that's a purely digital plus events, but a digital first business? Have you found that?
So I found it fascinating. So you're right. I am a chartered mechanical engineer by profession. I'm also the grumpy old git of the Scaleup team, as I'm the oldest in the group. And for me, I guess whilst I've spent 30 odd years in the manufacturing and engineering sector, I did spend a period in my career, about 3 or 4 years, as an IT director within a sort of medium to large size valve manufacturer. So I guess one of the things I found when I joined the Scaleup program, I came in as the manufacturing guy, but as digital and tech businesses came on board, I realized that whilst I'd never ran my own tech business, I have been a customer of and a consumer of technology. And in fact, when I reflect back, my second degree was in technology management. And when I completed that degree in 1996, that was probably the start of a 20-year sequence of me bringing technologies of various shapes and sizes, but many digital, into the businesses that I was leading and shaping and influencing. So as I moved into Scaleup and came across people like yourselves and others, I realized that actually I sort of understand this stuff, and I understand it from the end user's perspective. Mm-hmm. So, and having met more digital and technology businesses, I thought, well, actually, I'm always inquisitive. I'm always seeking to learn new things. So I thought, actually, it would be a nice challenge. In fact, it would be quite rewarding if I was able to deploy my experiences in the technology sector. Mm-hmm. So far, so good, I think. And it's obviously pleasing when digital businesses that I work with do feedback to me that they found my advice and support of relevance.
Yeah. No, I think the other thing that appealed to me as well was after kind of 4 years of being running my own business, I recognize I'm very good at starting things. I'm very good at innovating and developing new products and services, but putting robust systems and processes in place is not my strong point. So working with someone like you who has a lot of experience in that sort of thing was really beneficial in getting me thinking about what I need to do to take the business to the next level and go from a not a startup but like an established micro business to being a bigger business, what that would take to scale it up. So I've definitely enjoyed that.
Yeah, which is interesting because if I reflect on my career profile, I've almost gone in reverse to what some people may aspire to do. And that the first company I worked in had 2,500 employees. Mm-hmm. Next one had 800, and that was my first director's role. Then the next one had 180. One after that, 80. And then when I bought my own business with 14 employees, so somewhere on that way, I realized I was on a progression that eventually lead to becoming self-employed.
Yeah.
And in fact, now with my scale-up activities, I have my own little micro business, Esson Partnership Limited. So I have achieved that objective of being the incredible shrinking man in that perspective. But in some sense, what that's given me is because I started my career within large global engineering organizations, what that taught me was system and structure and organization. As I've moved into progressively smaller businesses, I've also realized that you can't take the rules and regulations that you employ within a 2,500 person business and apply them to a 14 employee business or a 2 employee business. So you've got to adjust and adapt what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So that journey in reverse from 2,500 down to being self-employed means that turn that paradigm round, then thinking about what you need to do as a scaling business, it's almost the opposite of the process I've been through.
Yeah, that's good. And then you talked before about being the grumpy guy in the team, but I think it's more a case you're very kind of I would say more wise. You know, you're aware of where the potential pitfalls and where the risks might be. So, wonder if we could talk a little bit about that. Obviously, where we are now with the whole coronavirus situation, nobody could have predicted that, or maybe some scientists did, but no one really listened to the scientists. But I want to talk about kind of risk and kind of coping with unprecedented situations, and yeah, have you got some advice on that from your own experience?
Yeah, so I guess my experience and in fact Dr. Steve Peters sums it up quite nicely in his book The Chimp Paradox, because one of the things that messages he tries to get across is that you need to accept that life isn't fair. Mm-hmm. That sometimes, no matter how you work to do all the right things, no matter how hard you work, sometimes life deals you sucker punches. Things are out with your control. So when I reflect back, so my working career started in 1984, and I've lost count of the number of economic downturns I've been through. When I add to that some of my experiences of 2/3 of my board of directors leaving the business I was leading at one stage to go and join local competition, or the time that my divisional MD got arrested by the FBI on a trip to Houston, and many other challenges, often unexpected, you realize actually that is the challenge, and in some respects the exhilaration of business. It's recognizing that things come out of the blue that you just completely didn't expect. The test is how you deal with them. My simple advice to people is you've got to rationalize it that it's probably not something you've done wrong. So you can't blame yourself for it. So you just got to focus on the fact that this is where we are. We can't go back and undo things or change things. And sometimes, as I say, life isn't fair. Things like coronavirus just thrust themselves at you. So it's a case of saying, well, we wouldn't necessarily choose to start from here, but here is where we are. So how do we plan a way forward from here to where we want to go?
Okay, right. So what are you sort of finding when you're speaking to businesses through the Scaleup program? Like, well, everybody's in the same situation. Some people are coping with it better than others, but what are you finding? What are people? What is the best way to cope or with the situation at the minute, would you say?
Yeah, so it is a really mixed bag, because one of the things that I realized probably first week into lockdown and working from home, the roles that I'm involved in just now were roles with RTC North and other work that I do, where it was very easy, natural step to go to working from home, just carry on in the office doing things by remote calls. But the business community almost split in two at that point. There were, I guess, people like us and people who were in technology-based businesses and purely office-based businesses who just flipped into home working. And initially, I think everyone was quite excited about that. Isn't this great? We're all working from home. The reality of, I've got young kids that I need to school, because all of a sudden they've closed the schools and things kicked in. But alongside all those businesses who happily flipped into working from home, there is a significant manufacturing sector in the Northeast that are still going into the office, are still going into the factory and still working. And a significant chunk of those businesses have continued to operate through the last 8 weeks. So we almost became bipolar in terms of those who were in that working from home mentality and those who were actually still dealing with the day-to-day issues of their employees coming in, social distancing in the workplace, getting materials in, dealing with customers. So that was the first split. Then as things moved forward, it became evident that there were some businesses for whom it was just business as normal. Many businesses who were being impacted by a downturn, either because they had employees off ill or their clients were delaying projects or materials weren't coming in. And those businesses had to either go into partial hibernation or complete hibernation. Then there were those who were facing that almost an existential crisis, I think particularly in the hospitality sector, where everything shut down overnight with a prospect of nothing happening for months at a time. And those businesses were those facing the real danger of liquidation. And I read somewhere that somebody's coined the term innovation, hibernation, and liquidation. Mm-hmm. So that hibernation side can be split in two. There's the stable hibernators and the anxious hibernators. So to me, an anxious hibernator is those businesses who are thinking, I need to cut costs, I need to put people on furlough, I need to slow it down what I'm doing. I'm doing everything I can, but I'm not 100% sure that I'm going to come out the other side of this. It depends on how long we're in this sort of period of stasis. And then the lucky place to be, the sort of stable hibernators, were those who said, right, I've put everything on furlough, close things down, we're keeping things ticking over, and I've got a nice healthy cash balance, and I'm confident that I'll be able to weather the storm, and when we come out the other end, I'll dust myself down and pick things up.
Yeah.
So real mixed bag. And then back to the innovators, those particularly on the maybe software development side of things, the tech side, where orders were still coming in, the pipeline was still there, we think, actually, we can afford to spend some time thinking about how we innovate and how we transition into some sort of opportunity coming out of this. Real mixed bag. And then the fourth one I've mentioned are the operators. So those businesses, many of the manufacturers, who have actually just kept bubbling along, just keeping things going and doing okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It is that real mixed bag. So depending on who you talk to and which day of the week, you can get a different scenario.
Yeah. Okay. I'm trying to think which category I would fall into. I think definitely the last month. It was a lot of it was just trying to steady the ship and like stop money going out as quickly. Try to get some new money coming in. Take a bit of a step back and think, okay, what can I deliver digitally that I can't do offline? Because obviously the biggest thing is the Newcastle Startup Week Festival, which should be taking place this 5-day annual event. So it took me a little while to think about how to do it, but now I'm doing it digitally. Obviously, we're doing this Startup Week online event, and actually, it's creating more opportunities. It's given me a chance to do things that I've been wanting to do for a long time, but I've been putting them on the back burner or thinking I just didn't have the time or inclination to do it. But actually, now is the time to do it. So it's creating more opportunities for me and getting me excited again.
So what was your biggest challenge when you hit that realization that it's not going to be business as normal?
I mean, definitely cash flow was a problem because from the work we've been doing, my business has been very heavily reliant on this big annual event. So although we get sponsorship coming in sort of leading up to Christmas time, and then from January onwards, that's when the ticket sales really start to ramp up, particularly from the end of March till the middle of May. That obviously wasn't going to happen because we had to reschedule the main physical event until September. So people are still buying tickets for that, but we've had to change it to be more of an online offering and a membership of the Startup Week community Facebook page. So cash flow, because basically we would have expected a lot of money coming in, well, a lot of money for us in that short space of time from March until May. which isn't coming in now. So I've had to look at. I've actually applied for a bounce back loan, so I've got somebody for that, just to give a bit of breathing space and tide us over until the rest of the money starts coming in again.
Yeah, and cash is. If I go back far enough into my career, I used to hear people who used to say cash is king. Mm-hmm. And I remember talking a few years ago to the owner of a very successful fabricating business. Mm-hmm. His view was he didn't look at profit. He didn't so much look at growth. He looked at how much cash he had in the bank and how much cash he had coming every week. And I guess a situation like this really sort of brings home the fact that cash is the most critical thing. I've seen various surveys and questionnaires going out and trying to establish how businesses are, but the simple thing I've been trying to determine with the businesses I've been helping is, what's your cash flow balance? What's your cash flow forecast? And will you have enough cash to see you at the other end? Because certainly my experience in business and running small businesses is that it doesn't matter what your dreams and ambitions are, if you don't have the cash to pay the bills, you're told. And in that respect, I think a key piece of advice, and I think many people are being driven to do it possibly for the first time in these circumstances, is mastering the art of the cash flow projection, and cash flow forecast. Because sometimes it can be a scary thing to do, but it's about facing up to your demons and your worst fears. So if you're going to run out of cash, better to know 6, 8, 10 weeks in advance. Then you've maybe got a chance of doing something about it. And just let it jump up and slap you in the face when it's too late.
I mean, you talked about surveys there, so I was running a little survey last month, asking micro businesses how much money, like how long they could keep going based on how much money they had in the bank account at the minute. Most people were saying 2 months, 3 months. So it's it's obviously not ideal, but sometimes when you're in that situation and you almost, not necessarily hand to mouth, but that's just the way you are, where you've got work due to come in, and you're not looking too far ahead. But even some of the sponsors for Start a Week, because they've been hit by the coronavirus as well, I'm still waiting to get paid by some of them, and it's almost 2 months overdue now. So do you know what I mean? So there's like new money that would have been coming in from ticket sales, and there's old money that should have come in which hasn't come in. So I was trying to not borrow any money if I didn't have to, but I just thought, actually, like when the bounce back loans came in last week, I thought there's no quicker, easier, or kind of potentially cheaper way to get some money at the minute to keep me going and give me a bit of breathing space. So why not? So.
Yeah. Well, you can tell me at a later date how successful you are with your loan applications. It's always useful intelligence.
Yeah. Well, I've already got it, so I applied. I applied on Monday, and I got it 2 days later.
Excellent. That's good news, and certainly again, sticking with the cash theme. I remember previous experiences of being involved in crashes in the oil and gas industry. And if you're a growing business and you're investing in expansion and the market takes a dive, that really hits your cash flow. And I remember I had a very down-to-earth finance manager who said at the time, he said, well, I guess, Andrew, I'll just have to get my tin hat on when all of our suppliers are coming in chasing me for payment. Because what it is ultimately about getting as much cash into the business as you can, minimizing your day-to-day expenditure, and trying to hang on to as much cash in the business as you can, which, if it means stretching your payment terms, although in an ideal world one shouldn't do that if you listen to the business purists. Actually, it can be surprising just how far you can stretch things. So it is about sometimes accepting that you might get 1 or 2 irate phone calls from suppliers, but also being prepared to have similarly irate phone calls with your customers when they're not paying up.
I think this is a sweeping statement, but generally speaking, I think a lot of freelancers or micro businesses tend to pay any invoices like very quickly. You know, so if someone invoices them, if they've got the money in the bank, they'll pay it instead of waiting until the 14th day or the 30th day or whatever. But really, you don't have to pay it early, do you? It's not. You're perfectly within your rights to wait until the last day. Obviously, you don't want to pay it late. You shouldn't pay it late if you like, ideally you pay it on time or a little bit sooner if you can. But there's definitely a few times over the last 4 years where I've kind of caught myself out a little bit by I've been paying out money immediately, expecting some money in, and it hasn't come, and then I've got myself into a little bit of a difficulty through that way. So
Yeah. Well, one of the things I did, so back in 2015, the business I was in, we got clobbered by the oil and gas downturn, as they were in the oil industry when the oil price went from $130 down to $25. One of the things I adopted was a tip that I actually picked up from Andrew Hodgson, who was then chief exec of SMD. Andrew told me that even SMD, which a big 80 million turnover business at the time, he said they did a 13-week rolling daily cash flow forecast.
mm-hmm.
So they'd be looking 13 weeks out, and every day they'd drop a day off and they'd add another day on, but day by day they'd be projecting what cash is coming in and what cash is going out.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, if that's good enough for SMD, then good enough for my little business. So again, we put that in place and found that invaluable, because then you can look forward and say, okay, we've got someone we need to pay money out to. They're expecting it then, but we might not have the funds to pay them. But actually, we're expecting a chunk of money coming in 2 days afterwards. So in terms of your supplier management, debt or credit management, you could have the conversation to say, we're not going to be paying them, but we can guarantee we'll pay 2-3 days down the line. So it's managing those inflows and outflows so you stay within your cash limits.
That's good advice. Yeah. I think it was last week when we were talking, you said something interesting about even if something changes, like circumstances change, going back to the original plan and in a way, maybe doubling down on some of your original ideas. So can you remember what you were talking about then? And do you want to go into a little bit more about that?
I can, yeah. So one of the things I learned a few years ago now was I remember I was leading a Continental subsidiary based up in Washington. I think it was a decade ago now. And we gone through about 3 or 4 years of really strong growth, so 17 million to about 28 million. And then one of the oil and gas downturns that happens every few years, it was in 2009. So the year after the credit crunch, that's when the oil price collapsed. So we saw a downturn in activity and a downturn in projects. And I remember my advice to my team then in the business was, remember all those things we were doing when we were on that growth curve? Well, we need to continue doing those things, but we need to double our intensity, because we need to work harder, because the business is still there. There's less of it. So what we're aiming to do is technically to increase our market share within a shrinking business. And the way you increase market share, it doesn't matter whether you're in a growing market or a shrinking market, you increase market share by acquiring more customers and winning more business. So it's the same principles of how do you bring more customers on board and how do you win more business from them. So I think my advice to you last week and to others in the scenario is coming through this sort of trough that we're in, coming out the other end, all those things that you're doing 3 or 4 months ago before COVID-19 that were going to help you to scale your business, you do them but squared coming back out. So it's working to make sure that you're connected with your customers, you're aware of the pipeline, you start to look for who other clients are if your customers are impacted, but just working harder.
You froze a little bit that last bit. You just want to repeat the very last bit that you said there.
Yeah, so it's about focusing on working with or keeping in touch with your existing clients, finding out how they are, finding out what opportunities they have, also looking for new clients and just working harder to bring the opportunities in and convert them.
Have you got a dog there?
Yeah, that's my guard dog in the background.
Right.
So there'll be somebody coming to the door.
Class. Okay, cool. What was I going to say? So I want to talk a little bit about you were talking about different types of business, or how the business community split as well, and also about there's the tech and digital type businesses who are potentially quite well equipped for this situation, and you've got the non-tech digital businesses, the more traditional ones. I know we've talked quite a lot about there's a bit of a disconnect between the tech and digital sector and the everyone else. So why do you think, where do you think the opportunities and the challenges are for bringing those different groups together?
Yeah. So I think it's a challenge, and I guess for those who have seen the Pixar film Inside Out, get this, but for those who haven't, Inside Out, it's about life from the inside of a 13-year-old girl's mind over in San Francisco. And in her mind, she's got these sort of reference islands. She's got Hockey Island, Family Island, Holiday Island. And it's struck me just in the last year, as I've been working with manufacturing businesses and digital businesses, that we've got a fantastic digital cluster in the Northeast, but they sort of sit on digital island, this, which is separate from my island, manufacturing island. And I, probably because of my technology management and IT background, I've almost got a foot in both islands. And because I think a bit of digitese, I can have sensible conversations with digital island. If you're a non-digital business, if you're a manufacturer with less than 30 employees, you probably won't have an IT person in your team, and you'll be really good at the thing that you do. May not have actually used any complex technology solutions, software solutions in your business. Great at spark erosion or CNC machining, but in terms of business systems and the use of CRM and the use of MRP systems, it's just something you've never counted. And the disconnect that I see is that those pure manufacturing businesses who don't have that digital capability, they don't speak digitese, that they don't have the capability to interact with businesses on digital island. So when the digital community reach out to them, the communication just doesn't gel. You get the odd exception to that in manufacturing. So back when I run a manufacturing business, because I'd implemented ERP, CAD, CAM, product configuration, other things, I was the MD of my business, was always on the lookout for technologies to adopt. So I would happily engage with technology providers, but yeah, I was lucky that I had that background and been given the opportunity to develop those skills and that knowledge. But I say back to my sort of identity manufacturing businesses, there are many businesses, even larger businesses, who don't have that in-depth technology understanding. So when people try to sell to them and try to use jargon in manufacturing, so Industry 4.0, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, these are terms that people don't understand and can't relate to. So it's about changing the conversation, because ultimately the reason a non-digital business will deploy digital technology, it should be for 2 or 3 related issues. It should either be to increase sales or reduce costs, but ultimately in both cases to increase profitability. And that's what people have, you sometimes lose sight of things that it's technology for technology's sake. But digital island people need to know how to engage, to understand the other sectors, non-digital sectors' problems, and help them understand the simple things they can do to make them more effective, to help them increase sales, reduce costs, improve profitability.
Now that's simple terms. That's what every business would want to use technology for, isn't it? And I know I've heard you speak as well about the when new digital technologies go wrong, because it's not just a case of buying in the technology, it's like how you implement it within the current environment as well. So you need to really get buy-in from the team as well, the existing team, or train them up, or spend a bit. It's not just a case of just buying it and away you go, otherwise it will fail. So you've had some real experience of doing that, haven't you? So
Yeah, and in my experience, I guess my first brush with IT was when I was production director in a business in Huddersfield. We'd implemented SAP in 2009. No, sorry, 10 years out, 1999, because we'd been sold the year 2000 compliance dummy that our legacy system wasn't year 2000 compliant. Introduced SAP, it was a 230 user system, and it took us 6 weeks to get the software to run after we went live. And then when we went live, we got to the end of the next month thinking we were going to ship about £3 million worth of product, and we shipped about 1 million because the data transfer had been incomplete. So whilst the MRP system said we had all the parts to build high value products, well, we had all the parts that run the system, but you can't build a main steam isolation valve without the blooming big casting, steel casting that all the bits go inside. It looks a bit naked without that body casting. So yeah, that was a realization. But then beyond that, so I was asked to stop being production director and become IT director and get the system working. But then, quite simply, it became everyone's excuse for not doing their job. Mm-hmm. People say, oh, we can't provide this piece of information, or we can't do that because SAP doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And eventually at one stage in a board meeting, I did suggest to our finance director that if he offered that as an excuse for somebody not doing something in the board meeting again, he could choose which window in the boardroom he wanted to leave by. Because by that time, we'd completely re-engineered the system. We'd also brought in third-party experts to check and recheck, so we proved that the system worked. But if I look back on that, so what did that business do wrong? Amongst other things, it wasn't winning hearts and minds before the system was implemented. Because typically when you're putting a new system in, most people, they don't like change. They're like, well, actually, we like the old system. Why can't we stick with the old system? So simply way, if you get them involved in the selection process in some way, shape or form, they can see what's coming and they can see the benefit for it, then are they more or less likely to work to make it work? Well, they're likely. So you need to get the buy-in. You then need to train them. You then need to retrain them, and then you need to train them again because people do forget. And then the other critical thing is, my experience is, go as close to vanilla as you can. If you're implementing a new system and there's an out-of-the-box solution available and your people say that it doesn't work for you, it probably means that your business processes are wrong. Because most people follow, the product may change, the service may change, but most people follow a fairly linear process from rustling up the initial inquiry through to delivering and invoicing. So if your processes are different from what's being offered, then question your processes. And then once you've done that, make sure your data's accurate, because in my experience, the main reason that systems don't work is because people don't manage the data. Hence, when people talk about big data, my experience is most non-digital businesses can't even do little data. So you've got to help them get the data right. So it's culture, it's getting buy-in, it's training, it's keeping the configuration as simple as possible, and it's being absolutely zealous about your data being accurate.
Great advice. So, what do you think's going to be the outcome? Well, let's go back. Boris Johnson's just announced some slight changes to the lockdown, where he said if you can work from home, you should work from home, but if you can't, and so it's I guess it's aimed at people like manufacturing and go into work. So what do you think the challenges of that are? Like, are you finding, you said that a lot of the businesses are just carrying on as normal, but there will be some safety concerns there, and maybe some supply chain issues as well. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I'm sticking my neck out here, given that by the time this airs, it will be a few days down the line and things may have changed. But the interesting thing, so one thing that immediately struck me from the announcement yesterday was that whole piece about getting manufacturing back to work. Well, the Secretary of State for Business, Alok Sharma, issued an open letter to manufacturing around about the 8th of April, saying that from a UK perspective, it was vitally important that manufacturing kept operating. He issued a letter to that effect saying, so it's okay for you to keep operating, it's okay for your people to come to work. And at the same time, the social distancing guidelines were adjusted to make it easier for people to get back into work. And through, I guess, one of the things I do, I'm chair of the Make UK North East Regional Advisory Board. So through participation in regional advisory board meetings, North of England advisory board meetings, and national membership board meetings, the sense is actually a big chunk of manufacturers were operating throughout, but many others have been able to use those revised guidelines. And the fact that having that letter from government, because remember back on the 22nd or so of March, Boris stood up and said, don't go to work tomorrow. That gave many manufacturers a problem because their employees did just that. They didn't go to work tomorrow. And I know some businesses who actually had to close down because there was that mismatch between what they were being told behind the scenes about, yes, we need the economy to keep going, adopt social distance in the workplace and you can keep operating, to that very black and white message from Boris to say, don't go to work tomorrow. Hence the letter on the 8th of April that encouraged manufacturing businesses and gave them something they could share with their employees. But I know businesses who were, I know one business where a third of the workforce went back voluntarily 2 weeks ago, and last week they had the whole workforce back in. So that announcement on we want manufacturing and construction back into work is almost just a replay of the message that had been filtered out into those industries over the last 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
So that was interesting, because the challenge is that if, you know, for those businesses who have had to furlough and close down, in many cases it may be because of illness levels in the staff. It may be because their clients, their customers, have put orders on hold and don't want to take delivery. And I guess the automotive sector would be a prime example of that, with Nissan closing the manufacturing plant. That ripples all the way down the automotive supply chain. But it may also be that manufacturers and businesses just can't get the materials in to make the things that they make. So that go back to work tomorrow instruction, you know, needs a bit of unpicking. That actually, if you've put all your employees in furlough, then you need to manage that process. And if you bring people back in, you know, if you make product, can you ship it to your clients and raise an invoice? Because otherwise what you're doing is burning cash, which is back to that cash question again. And so if you get all your people back in and you don't have the materials to make your product, then you're paying people, but you're not able to produce anything. So I think the guidance that comes out today will hopefully put a bit more flesh on the bones of what the possible is. And within that, I know the Make UK ask of the government is recognising that the furlough process isn't an off-on binary. For many businesses, it will be a case of, we'd like to get people back in, but we can't pick or choose. We can't go 50-50 because then we're not able to operate all the processes. So maybe what we'd like to do is work a 3-day week. But the furlough scheme as it currently is doesn't allow you to do that, because you can't put someone on furlough. It's got to be for 3 weeks and then you bring them back in. So it's helping people manage that, because that stop-start furlough scenario may go on for 2 or 3 months yet.
It's fascinating, really, isn't it? Like this, it's just affected everything, and it's getting, everybody's having to think really deeply and creatively about every aspect of not only business but the life, like the daily lives. But in a way, it's quite exciting at the same time. You know, obviously it's horrible what's been going on, but it is quite exciting if you can be innovative and entrepreneurial, how you see through this, and how you hopefully emerge from it stronger with different working practices as well. So you're talking there about, I think there'll be the idea of working from home. People have been talking about it for years, but actually, you know, being forced to do it, it's not that bad and not as difficult as some people might have thought it was. Technology makes it a bit easier. There's obviously challenges when you've got to look after kids as well, or at the same time, and then 3-day working week as well, and just looking at everything in a different way. It's I think it's quite, if you look at it that way, it's quite exciting.
Yeah, and I think it definitely shows the art of the possible, and yeah, a number of us have. I've been blending home working into my work pattern for about 7, 8 years now, because I have the luxury of running my own business and having a business near to where I live. That sometimes it was easier for me just to settle down in the home office. And initially it was in the downstairs back room, but now we've converted one of our upstairs bedrooms into a little study, so I can happily work from here. And the reality is, for the activities I'm involved in just now, whilst it would be nice to meet people face to face, a lot of what I can do can be done remotely. I think where it loses is that if you're in a group meeting, it's fine in a one-to-one, but if you're in a group meeting scenario, then when you come across those instances where maybe not everyone's agreeing with what's being discussed, you don't quite pick up on the body language and the mood of individuals, which hopefully, as if you're experienced in sharing meetings, then you're constantly scanning the room and thinking, actually, some Jimmy over in the corner there doesn't look a bit happy, body language is a bit, so I'll just need to try and bring them into the conversation. You're on a Zoom meeting, you can Teams, you can only see 4 or 5 people. If you're on a Zoom meeting with 10 people on the screen, you've got the little thumbnails. It's less easy to see who you're losing, who's not on board with what you're discussing. So less easy to manage any fallout from that. And that's where the face-to-face aspect sometimes is. You see more, because that communication thing, you see more when you're dealing with people in 3D than in 2D. Maybe once we have hologram technology, then that'll be.
Yeah, that'd be good. Maybe that's the next thing. Well, people have been looking into VR and augmented reality for a while, but maybe this is an opportunity to push on with some of that now. Okay. You don't have to, because you don't work in marketing or anything like that for Scaleup Northeast, but is there anything you want to say about the Scaleup Northeast program, about how people can still benefit from that, because obviously there has been a big push on Scaleup, like getting established businesses to grow and scale to the next level. Some now it's just about survival, it's about resilience and keeping going. So has anything changed with the Scaleup Northeast program and the approach that you've been taking through that?
Yeah, so we've been doing a lot of repurposing of our delivery, and those who are involved in the Scaleup community may have noticed that we've been running webinars on just about everyone and their uncle has been running webinars in the last month or so, but we've been getting good uptake on webinars on financial planning, on marketing, on leadership. It's all those things about how you manage your way through a situation like this. So John Simmons, my colleague, loves nothing better than sitting down and looking at forecasts and developing business plans. So he's been giving people the benefit of his experience. So we've been doing that, but whilst we've been doing that, we've also been looking ahead, and particularly looking at that sort of hibernation model that, if you're in anxious hibernation and you're worried about your business, you're probably less likely to be thinking about what you're going to do coming out the other end, because you're not sure if you're going to come out the other end. And we've got to recognize that for some people there are anxieties in the process. I guess particularly if you're a small business and as the owner director you're not paying yourself a lot of money out of the business, then the furlough scheme may have been a bit underwhelming. Similarly, if you're a startup business but you're still operating as a sole trader, you may be struggling to access through the sort of sole trader support scheme. So that can create a bit of anxiety. But once you come through the other side, and hopefully get to the point of thinking, right, I've done everything I can, I'm really confident I'm still going to be here. That's the point at which you do need to start thinking about what's going to come next. So we've been repurposing what we're doing. We're talking to the LEP, and we don't necessarily envisage working with businesses in the next few months who are on that 20% year-on-year growth curve. There's a lot of businesses we were working with where they have stalled, businesses we'd worked with who, businesses in a different scenario. So part of our focus will be, how do we help businesses to restart? One of the ideas we're looking at is a bounce back health check, where in effect what we're offering, it goes back to what I said earlier, that in times of challenge, when you're coming out of a recession or a major business upset, you just do everything you were doing before, but do it twice as hard. So in the same way, the scale-up process of the Scale-up Institute typically identified that growing businesses find barriers in one or more of 5 areas. So leadership, talent, access to markets, infrastructure, and access to finance. So to me, in terms of bounce back health checks, what we will be doing is having sensible, down-to-earth conversations with businesses to say, okay, where are you leadership-wise? Is your head in the right place? You manage to get through this process without upsetting your employees too much by doing anything that they might hold against you later. Have you had experience of managing through a downturn? So that's leadership, access to talent. Have you had to lay people off? Have you lost people because they decided to do something else? They're on furlough and don't want to come back in, which is a challenge some businesses are facing. Access to markets, similar things. So you can work through all these things. So what we'll be offering businesses is the chance to tap into the business turnaround expertise that sits in the Scale-up team. So yeah, I've been there as an entrepreneur. I've won the awards for times of growth, but I've also got the battle scars when I've been in businesses where it's gone the other way. I've had to manage on fresh air for periods of time. I've had to deal with redundancies and loss of key customers, loss of key markets. So we have that expertise. So we will be making that available to businesses in the short term, less to help them scale, but to help them get the business back on the feet.
Okay, that sounds like a good service. I think I'll take you up on that offer. Once Startup Week's over, it'd be good to just kind of, well, I know we're talking regularly anyway, but just to sort of look at where things are and what I need to do over the next few months, because it looks like the lockdown is gonna be in place for another few months at least, doesn't it? So
it's looking that way. I mean, just reflecting on Boris's announcement last night, I think, well, actually, if you're able to work from home, that's what you were doing for a period of time. And I know bigger businesses. My sister-in-law worked for a leading UK insurance business, international business, and their CEO is planning on actually, let's just not return to office working, continue doing it remotely. And I was talking to someone in the financial services side today, and they were saying the same thing, that they've got offices in places like London where it's the old-fashioned skyscrapers, lifts. There's no way you can get people in there. They're hot desking when they're in there, working shifts. It's a long time before we go back to that sort of working environment. Yeah. Interesting, I think where there's a will, there's a way. I find it interesting that manufacturing businesses have managed to sort of maybe get their heads around it a bit quicker because they have to, because they can't do what they do without people going into the factory. Whereas office-based businesses, actually, if you don't need to, it's easier to say, well, actually, we couldn't work around that way, but there are ways and means. But yeah, I think the best planning scenario is that businesses who can work from home will be doing so for an extended period of time. Just a pity we didn't have slightly warmer weather, because then we could have our face-to-face business meetings out on the terrace. Yeah. Of nice cafes, outside the picture and piano. That'd be a lovely place to meet if it was only 10 degrees warmer. And people would be more open to meeting on the terrace of a cafe for business-to-business meetings and going into an office where you've got to walk past people wearing face masks.
Yeah, well, I think it's going to come. So yeah, we'll have to do that. Right. Okay. Well, always a pleasure talking to you, Andrew, and really enjoyed working with you over the last, however long, I don't know, 6 months, 8 months, longer. But and really looking forward to continuing to work with you over the coming months as well. So I think we'll leave it there for now, and if anyone's got any questions, then they can ask them below. Okay. All right. Thanks a lot, Andrew.
Excellent. You're very welcome.